Hi team, welcome again to this 8th video in our infrastructure as a code series where we've been looking at Terraform. Now, in our last video, we looked at, we introduced the concept of modules, and we went ahead and basically looked at an example of how to write a module whereby we're just creating a directory. We're creating a directory, and within the directory, we are writing our files, our manifest files. Then from that, we were able to create a main.tf file, and we were able to initialize our modules. So we looked at some examples of how we can do that. We also created a database EIP security group and a web server using modules, and we were able to initialize and so that. So today, as we said, these two examples we're using, these were like custom modules that we were just writing as resources. So today, I want us to look at now how we can use modules from the official registry. So in this, we're going to create a simple module, which is just a VPC. We're going to create a VPC module. So in this VPC module, if we are trying to create this module using Terraform. Now, if you go into our manifest file for this VPC, so the first thing we are doing is inside of our VPC module, right? We have our versions.tf. This basically remains a constant whereby we are passing our Terraform provider and provider block and the Terraform version. This is what we're going to use our provider is obviously AWS, and we're just passing a region as a variable. So if I look at my variable file, I just have one default region. So as a matter of fact, let's use US West 1 as our default region. So that would be a variable. But now when we go to our Terraform module, so we are going to go onto the registry. So we can say Terraform VPC module. So we'll be looking at AWS VPC module from the registry. Now, once you go on this particular module, now you want to create a VPC using this module. So it will give you the basic example usage, right? It will give you an example usage. And in this example usage, you can look at other examples like complete VPC, manage default VPC, or simple VPC module. So if you click on simple VPC module, basically it is going to create all this for you. But if you create a simple VPC module, then all that you are basically selecting is this, right? You're just selecting these as the source, and then it's going to create for you a simple VPC module. You see right here, it has 0 inputs. So everything has already been pre-configured for you. You don't need to worry about any input. So you just select that module and it creates a simple module for you. But if you go to a complete VPC, it also has 0 inputs, but the number of outputs that you can put in, number of outputs, these are the number of outputs. This is what you can output out of that module, right? So let's go back to let's go back to that basic usage or this complete VPC. If you click on that, it is going to give you the GitHub GitHub, basically the GitHub source code. This is for VPC view, and just open the main. It gives you all this. This is the VPC module with all these subnets and everything. It is being given as basically as default. It is being passed as variable. All right, so when we look at the VPC module right here, it has 167 input. These are what you can input. Then for the outputs, these are some of the things that we can output from that module. So what we will do is that we'll copy this basic usage and customize it. So we'll copy. Actually, let me paint. I'll copy that module. Let's shift right here. That's our VPC module. Let me in this. Open that there. Open that there. So this is our VPC module that we have basically passed right here. Our VPC module, the source is this. Now when we go back to this, the version right now it has the latest version, right? The latest version. So you can search for different versions. So let's say we choose the latest version. So we will need to put this version because modules are versioned. So we will put our version that is the source, and we will put our version. So the version for this, we are using the latest, which is 3.11.5, and again it's a string. Right? So this is the latest module, and that is the version. Okay, that is the version of the module. Then the name. So inside of our output, the name. Right now it is my VPC, the CIDR block, 10.0.16. Then the AZs, let's give it US. Let's give it US West 1, US Est 1A, US West 1B. Let's just put it in two availability zones. We're putting it in US West 1A and 1B. Okay. Then the private subnets, we are putting it 10.0.21 and 10.2.0.21. Yeah, we only having it in two availability zones. So let's take that out. Let's take this out. Right. Then the public subnet, we're giving it at 10.101. Let's get that on 10.1. You can create it in 3 availability zones, but we'll just keep it simple. We'll just put it in these two availability zones like that. So we are kind of copying a module from the register, and then we are just customizing it. And then for the database, we also want to create. Okay, we want to enable the NOT gateway, right? We want to enable the NOT gateway. So NOT gateway is true. We want to enable, and we don't need a VPN, right? We don't need a VPN. So if you go onto this module and you go to your inputs, then you can look at what you can input, what values you can pass inside of this subnet. Like here, database subnet group name, right? A default network ACL name. So you can pass all this. You can pass all this. So we want to create a VPN. If you want to create a VPN, yes, you can VPN gateway, you can leave it at true. But right now we don't want to create a VPN. Let's look at the NAT gateway. So if you scroll down, optional inputs, you look at enable NAT gateway. Enable NAT gateway. You look at it as the input. So you scroll down. Then let's see about the NAT gateway. Enable flow logs, enable date gateway. Enable gateway is a Boolean. It should be true if you want to provision NAT gateways for each of the private networks, right? So if you want to enable a NAT gateway to provision, you should have it as true. But then if you scroll down, so if you leave that is true, then it means that it will create a NAT gateway in every availability zone. But that's not what we want. So if you scroll down, all this is alphabetical. We are looking for single. We want just a single NAT gateway. So if I go down to single NAT gateway should be true if you want to provision a single shared NAT gateway across all of your private network. So what we will do here is single. You copy that, and it's a Boolean. Copy. We don't want a VPN, so we just want a single NAT gateway. Is true. So it will just create a single NAT gateway here. Now, do we want to create database subnet? We also want to create like database subnet. So what we will do is we will go here, and because we want to create a 3-tier architecture whereby we have the public subnet, we have the private subnet, and we have the database subnet. So we also want our VPC to create a database subnet. So if you scroll down to your database subnet, and again it's alphabetically ordered, and you look at database create database. Database subnets. So we want to create database subnets. I want to create database subnet group. Controls if database subnet group should be created, right? So database subnets must also be set. So we need to create database subnet group, right? And it's a Boolean, so it's true. We create a database subnet group, then we have to create a database subnet group subnet route table. Controls if separate route table for database should be created. So now here we'll create the subnet group. We'll create the subnet group. Right, we'll create the subnet group. So all these are our inputs. This is true, right? All these are inputs, true. And then we want to create the database route table. route table. I have it as true. I have it as true. Then we need also now to create the subnet, the database subnet. So the database subnet, we need to give it a CIDR range, right? We need to give it a CIDR range because we are creating the subnets. Database subnet group tags, subnet tags. So database subnets. These are list of strings, a list of database subnets. So what are our database subnets? So we will give a list of strings, and we can give this strings as copy. We can give this list as this. So we can create, these are our database subnets. These are our database subnets that we're creating inside of that module. So we've enabled a database. We've enabled a NAT gateway. We've created our database. Then for VPC, for BC, we want to enable DNS host names and DNS support. So we want to enable DNS. So all these inputs you can basically input into your VPC. Have more than 160. So enable should be turned on to enable DNS host names in the VPC. So enable DNS, then also enable DNS support. Should be true to enable DNS support in your VPC. So we want a DNS host name support. So put it here as true. We'll put it there. And this is again a Boolean, so true. Then we'll also enable DNS support. Okay. That is true. We're gonna enable DNS support as true. Now the default right there is true. Then we now go to tags. You can go to private subnet tags. Private subnet tags. You cannot give different tags. These are public subnet tags. Public subnet tags, you can give it a string. There is also a private subnet tag. So you can tag your public subnet tags and your private subnet tags. You can just tag them. It is a map, right? It is a map. You can just tag them. My public subnet tags. You just tag them as public subnet. Type is public subnet. Private subnet tag. Public subnet tag is the additional tags for your public subnet. So you're just tagging them as that. Then apart from that, you also have the database subnet tags. You can also put your database subnet tags. Database subnet tags. Database subnet tags. You can just put them as database subnet tags. As that. And then for the tags, for these tags, right here, just Terraform is true. Environment is that. Environment is dev. I can put here a tag as the owner, as the owner. Then I can say the owner is, let me say the owner is landmark. This is the owner. So this is the tag that I'm passing onto my VPC owner. Then I can also put extra tags like VPC tags, VPC underscore tags. And then for this, I can just put name. This is now the name of the tag that will appear on the VPC. Then I can just put VPC -dev. So I can put that tag to be the tag of my VPC. So now with this, I have I've been able now to customize. I've been able to customize my VPC, right? I've been able to customize my VPC. I've been able to customize my VPC. I can give the name here as VPC so that it matches the tag VPC -dev, VPC-dev, right? And this is now my module. I've used the registry. I'm using an official module from the registry, and I'm just passing in all that I want it to create for me. And once I do that, it is going now to create for me a VPC with private subnets, with public subnets, with database subnets. It's going to enable all these. So all these are inputs, things that I can input in the module, and we equally have all these outputs that it is basically gonna output for you, right? And this is basically just you're just copying this module, and you're just putting like inputs to it. Now, if you go onto your source code, as we said, if you go on the source code, so this module on the background, it is running this entire code. If you go to your main.tf file, it is basically running all this code in the background for you. It is creating them as resources. So as you input your variables here, whatever you declare here, it is getting them locally as variables and creating resources in the background, right? Creating resources in the background. So now this is your source code, but you're just calling it as a module. Then it is going to run this code in the background. So now with that, let's go ahead and initialize this module. Initialize this module. We have our version, which is our provider. We have US West 1. So, and this is our VPC. So let's save it. Let's just save. Once we save, again, I'll go to my terminal. Then I'll just cd into cd into Terraform YouTube series. Then I'll go into modules. I'll go into 07. I'll go into YouTube series. Instead of YouTube series, if I ls, I have 07, so I'll cd into 07. modules, then I'll go into example 3, VPC, example 3, which is the VPC. Then inside this example 3, VPC, I'll go into AWS. So I'm going to AWS, VPC using Terraform. Then I'll cd into manifest into Terraform. I'll cd into Terraform, like cd into Terraform manifest. Then I'll cd into VPC. Then VPC. And VPC. It's a long path. VPC module. Right? So I'm inside. I'm inside of this module where that is my variable that I'm passing here. I'm passing here as my default. Then that is my VPC module. Okay. So I mean, if I ls in here, I should be able to see these three files. So I clear the screen. Then let's go ahead and initialize. So I'll do Terraform init. Let me initialize. So once it initializes, it's now downloading, initializing the module. It is downloading the module from the registry, right? Initialize the module from the registry, then it initialize the backend, where my backend is my local, and therefore once it initializes that backend, it now downloads your Terraform directory, right? The Terraform directory where it is saving now all the plugins, the HashiCorp AWS version of plugin. So once it downloads this, then let me go into my AWS, So it has finished initializing. Let me log back into my AWS. Just logging out the root. GC. So I'm in region US West 1, and if I go to my, let me just go to my VPC, let me see how many VPC I have right here. VPCs, I just have three VPCs. Right? I have the 3 VPCs in this region. So with that, I can now go and run Terraform plan. Once I run Terraform plan, it now plans to create for me all these resources. It's gonna now create for me all these resources. let's see, it's gonna create from the module, it's gonna create a subnet group. It's gonna create an EIP, right? EIP, it is going to create an internet gateway. It's going to create a NAT gateway. It's going to create a private NAT gateway. It's going to create a public internet gateway. It's going to create a route table for the private. It's going to create a route table for the public. It's going to create a route table association for the database, route table association for the private. So it is basically creating all these route tables. Then it will create subnets, database subnets, and this is the CIDR block that it will create. And these are the, this is basically the environment, the name, and the owner, and the type, right? And then the tags that we passed on that particular subnet. So it is passing all these tags. It's going to create the subnet for the database, the private subnets, the public subnets, right? The VPC, you're going to create that VPC. So it plans to create 22 resources. So it is creating 22 resources just by us just using the module and just inputting this. This is just our input, what we've just put in. We're just inputting because most of the other things are default, right? They're default, they're enabled by default. So it is because we created all this, so now it is going to create for us all these resources. So let's run Terraform apply, auto approve. So with this, it is now going to create for us that particular VPC. So if we go onto, it is creating all this. So if we go onto our console, and refresh this, US West 1, then we should see a VPC. That is the tag that we pass. This VPC has been created, and that is the VPC that has been created. When you look at the subnets, it has now created this VPC dev private subnet, VPC dev database subnet. So it has created the VPC dev private subnet. It has created VPC dev public subnet, VPC dev public subnet, right? So it has created these subnets for us, right? And both the database, private, and public subnets. So those are the subnets that it has basically created for us. So if you look at the route tables, it will have created this VPC private, VPC database, and public. So it has created these three route tables for the private subnet, for the DB, and for this. Now, if we look at the internet gateways, it has created one internet gateway that it has associated with that VPC that we just created. Then if you look at your NAT gateway, it's so let me see. It created one NAT gateway, but this is, I guess the NAT gateway probably it's still provisioning. Let's go to value parameter. Oh, in US West, we don't have this region. We don't have 1B. So we only have 1C. So that's why it's only created in US 1A. So what we can do is, that's the reason why I didn't create. So it is US 1C. 1C. 1C, not 1B. So we don't have 1B. So I can save that. So it's 1A and 1C. I can save that. Once I save, then I can reapply again. So once I reapply, it is going to refresh the state. It is going to look at what is there. Refresh the state. And then now it is not creating an EIP. Right? Then it's creating all the other. It is not creating all the other subnets, right? It is not creating all the other subnets. All right, so now we are not creating, this is our architecture that we are creating. We are creating our network first. So this is always the first thing that you have to do. When you want to deploy resources, like you first have to create your network. So we've designed this network whereby we are creating a VPC. Our VPC is our network. So once we create a VPC, then now we can deploy our resources inside of the VPC by referencing this particular VPC, okay? We only need to reference this particular VPC because we've created it. Then now we can now use, in the next chapter, we can now use what we call a data source. We can now reference this particular VPC and be able to create our resources inside of this VPC. So right now it's still creating the NAT gateway because it takes a while to create it. So if I refresh here, then I'll see that I have this second NAT gateway that has just been created, right? That has just been created and it's attached to that. So if I go to my subnet, then I will see that I have more subnets that have just been created in US 1C, but the private. So this one, it has created them in multiple availability regions for higher availability, and this is now what we've been able to create. Route tables, it will basically be route tables for both the public, for the DB, and for the private subnets that it has created for us, right? So if I go back now to this, it has created our VPC. And how did we create our VPC? We used this module. We used a module to be able to create our VPC, and that is just the version of provider, and these are the variables. And from this, it has created for us our state file. This is the state file that is being stored locally on our local environment, and that is the state file backup, right? And the state file, basically, it captures the state of our infrastructure. So it has everything within our infrastructure, and that is our state file, right? So this is how you can use a module to create that. Now with this, you do realize that for this particular VPC module, when we wrote it, we had coded everything, right? We basically had coded everything here. Now, instead of us doing it this way, so one thing we can do is that now we can rewrite this module so that we are using variables. right? So instead of hard coding it like this, we will instead use variables to write this model. So we'll try and standardize this so that we are using modules. And now I have during our next example here, which is basically standardized. We are basically standardize this module. So in this standardized module, we have our versions, which is the same as we saw. Then for our variables, now I've added more variables here. So like, remember we passed the tags as environment, and we can pass another variable as like the business division. So I'm now passing these variables as a tag, but I equally have what we call a locals block. Now locals block, they help you to define, especially if you have like long names that you don't want to make reference to them within the code. So you can use a locals block. Remember, locals block is one of the blocks that we said, one of the eight high-level blocks. So we can put like the owners can be like the variable business division. So let's say if the business division here is production, let's say this is production, prod, right? So the owner of this VPC will be the prod division, right? The owner will be the prod division. That is the owner, prod division. Then the environment again, we are passing it as a variable. The environment could be dev, or this could be, the owner could be, let's say finance. Let's say the owner of this is finance department. It's a business division, right? Business division, it is finance. So because the business division here is finance, then on the locals block, therefore the owner, the environment will be development, the business, the owner of the finance. And then therefore the name of the VPC will be the name of the business division right here, right? The name of the business division, the name of the business division hyphen the environment. So it will be like business division is finance hyphen dev. So this will become the name of that. Then the common tags, the owners will be local. So how to call it will be locals.owners, right? Locals.owners. So this will be the owner. The environment will be local.environment. And this environment, it will be var.environment, which is what I'm passing there. And then for the VPC itself, we are going now to pass like the VPC name, as we saw, as we will see in the module, VPC name. So like for this VPC module, so the name, it will be the local name hyphen the var.vpc name. Now this local name, it is getting it from the locals block. And the locals block, it will be local.name, and this name is this. That will be the name that it's picking, locals.name. So it is picking that name from there, right? Speaking that name from there, but then hyphen VPC name. So VPC name is this variable. So, and default is my VPC. So it is going to pick up that. Then the CIDR block, for the VPC CIDR block, we are also passing it as a variable. So VPC CIDR block, we are now standardizing and now passing this this as a variable. And then public subnet, we are also passing them as variables. Then for the database, we are also passing database subnet, create database subnet. These, we say these are Booleans, right? Then enable NAT gateway, we are also passing them as variables. Then enable DNS hostname, true. And then all these tags right here, we are also passing them as variables. So when we go now to output variables, so now we have all these availability zones. So now we have US West 1A and US West 1C. 1C, right? US West 1C. 1C. These are now our availability zones. And then these are our subnets. We are passing them, the type is list or strings. So we are passing all these subnets. Then these are Booleans if you want to create a VPC. So we are passing everything as variables. Then for a VPC module, that's what we just saw. Then we equally have outputs, what we want to output. We want to output the VPC ID. Now the VPC ID, the value will be the module. And what is the module? This module is called VPC. This is the module name, VPC. So it will be module.vpc, we want the VPC ID. We want to get the VPC ID of that. Now, this VPC ID, you will be able to get it from the module block. From the module itself, you have outputs. From this particular module, you have outputs. These are VPC module. So if you look at outputs, you can get a VPC ID. So if you scroll down, it's alphabetical. So you can get a VPC ID, right? The ID of your VPC. So I want to output this VPC ID. That's why it is right here. And then the CIDR block, it will be module.vpc, that is the name, then VPC CIDR block. I can also output the VPC CIDR block, This is part of the output. So I'm putting .vpc CIDR block. I want the private subnet. It is a list of IDs. So it will be from module.vpc.private subnet. If you look through this, you want private subnets. Here we have public subnets. We have private subnets. These are list of IDs of private subnets. So I want to get private subnets. So module.vpc, I want to get an output of a list of the private subnets. So that's why it is indicated here. Then you also have public subnets. So all these are outputs that you can get from your modules. Then we equally have what we call the Terraform.tf vars. These are variables. There are 10 ways that you can pass variables in Terraform, right? There are 10 ways to pass variables. So if you look at input variables, you can pass variables. There are basically 10 ways. You can use Terraform.tf vars. You can use Terraform TF vars. You can use a file. You can use an auto.tf vars, right? You can have them as input variables whereby you are prompted to input them. But there are 10, you can use environmental variables, but there are basically 10 different ways in which you can pass Terraform variables. So right here, we are using a Terraform.tf vars, right? So this one, they will be automatically be loaded as variables. So I have my generic variables that I've declared in my variables file, but if I use Terraform.tf, these values will also be loaded up. So I can change and say my business division is HR, my environment is staging, and my region, let me keep it at US West 1. But I can change my region. If I change my region to US West 2, right? US West 2, then it is going to create these resources in US West 2, right? In US West 2. So if I keep it that way, and then we also have my VPC.auto TFR. So now I'm passing this as auto. So this one, they will automatically be loaded when you initialize Terraform. So with that, I can go back to my console. Then let me just do a Terraform destroy. Terraform destroy.auto -- approve. Auto approve. So let me destroy the VPC that I just created. Once it destroys, then I'm going to now go into this other terminal, and I'm going to rerun this so that we see how now we can use this module, standardized module. But again, for this standardized module, I can put the version, Terraform version. I look at the module. So the version is 3. The version is 3. Let me put 3.11.5. VPC Module. VPC. Okay, so that is done. Let me delete this. Delete this broker. Let me delete this provider. Delete these modules. This Terraform. And delete this look. I'll delete this and close this. So then let's go to the standardized. We can actually delete this. Let me go into the standardized. So CD back and CD into VPC -module -standardized, right? And then now I'm inside of that, so I will run Terraform init. So making sure that everything has been saved. So save all links. Okay. So Terraform init. So initialize. You do not download the module. Once it downloads that particular module, once it downloads it, then I'll run Terraform plan This is a plan that it's going to generate for us. So it's planning to create all these things, right? It is running the plan, and it basically say it plans to add 22 additional. It is creating them in US East as US East 1A, US East 1B. How did you US East 1A? So let's see. In our variables, default region is US West 2, right? US West 2. In our VPC variables, we have availability zone as US West 1A, right? US West 1A. So these are the variables that we have passed, US West 1A. But how come on the plan it is creating on US East. Okay, we look at this. What is the output? In the output of the very bottom. And it showed an output. Side of block is that. So it's getting US East 1B. And the name is your business division and the environment and the name of the VPC, right? Hyphen this, where it is creating it. So how comes it's creating in US 1B? So this is where your Terraform.tf vars comes in, right? It auto loads this US 1B, but in our auto.vars, right? This is what we passed, right? US East 1A, US East 1B. So we see that when you when you pass variables in the auto.tf, so this file is gonna override the default variables that you passed inside of your variable file. So I've passed here as US was West 2, but in my auto, I've said I want to create in US East 1A as the availability zone. So because of this, so this auto.tf variable file takes precedence, or it takes preeminence. It overrides all the other variables that I've passed. So if I want to make a quick change, I will just come in my auto.tf vars file and make my changes here inside of this variable file. So, but if I don't pass anything here, then the variable file, this will take preeminence. The Terraform will read from this. But otherwise, if I have an auto.tf file, it is going to read from this. These variables are going to override all the others. And that's why it now created in US East 1A. It is going to create these resources in US East 1A. So if I run apply, to approve. I run that, so it is creating for me that. So if I go on to my console and I go to US East 1, so I have to go to US East 1, which is North Virginia. and I go to my VPC. I go to my VPC. My VPC is still creating my VPC. Okay. So that's the default VPC. So error creating EC2 VPC limited. The micro number VPC has been reached. So this is US East 1A. US East 1A. On the US East 1A. It only has one VPC. It only has one VPC. On VPC, but it's saying that my limit, I've reached the limit. All right, let me go back to, I'll find out what's going on. Let me go back to this and say I want to create it in US West 1A and West 1C. 1C. West 1C. So with that update, I'll save. And I'll go back to my console and I'll run apply. Once I run apply, it is now going to modify, and I could create it. Where I created VPC, the maximum VPC has been reached. So 18 VPC module. There it is. So now you see it is switching from east now to west. Now if I go to US West California, and then go to VPC, yeah, I only have 3 VPC. Let's say VPC have reached the limit. Okay, so this is US West. US West. So error creating EC2 VPC limit exceeded. The maximum number of VPC has been reached. So I don't know. It's talking about. Let me try to initialize that point. We're creating the VPC limit. Okay, try find out why it's telling me that my limit, the VPC limit has been exceeded. But for this for these purposes, we just, the whole purpose is for us to know that we can use modules. We can use modules to create our resources, to create our VPCs and all this. So I'll try and troubleshoot what is going on, but this is how we can use modules. You can use modules like this, whereby you just hard coding everything, right? You're hard coding everything, you're the info right here, but you can standardize it. So basically in production, this is the structure of how you're supposed to pass your files. You're creating your VPC file, you need to standardize it, use versions, use variables, use local block, use output, Terraform.tfvar and auto.tfvar. So standardize it like this. So in our next video, we will now see how we can configure a backend. Right now, we've been using our local backend. We've been saving our state file where on our desktop. But now we'll see how we can configure an S3 bucket so that it stores our state file, which is a more distributed environment. All right. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.